Most of us open a can to save time, not realizing what it slowly takes from us. The sound is familiar, that soft pop that promises dinner in minutes. For decades, canned food meant safety, convenience, even comfort after long days. But inside that metal shell hides something the body can't shrug off so easily. Your kidneys' two filters that never stop pay the price for every shortcut we take. Salt, phosphate, and chemicals made for shelf life don't just stay in the can, they stay in us. And once the kidneys begin to wear down, there's no rewinding them back to strength. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness, the kind that helps you see through bright labels and clever words like heart healthy or low fat. Because convenience shouldn't come at the cost of what keeps us alive. So today we'll open 7 cans, the ones wrecking your kidneys, and show you what's really sealed inside. The filter we forget deserves a little more respect. Number 1. Canned soups and chowders. A winter evening. Steam rising from a chipped ceramic bowl. The first spoonful feels like safety soft noodles creamy broth, that salty comfort we've all grown up with. For decades, canned soup has been the shortcut between hunger and warmth, a familiar sound of metal opening and memory returning. But the truth is, every swallow carries something the body quietly struggles to process. A single can of condensed soup can pack more than 1,000 milligrams of sodium, nearly half a day's limit, before you even add crackers or bread. Manufacturers rely on that salt to make the flavor pop and keep the product stable for years. The problem? Your kidneys don't know it's convenience food. They only know they're working harder filtering salt from the bloodstream that keeps pouring in. Over time, this constant load raises blood pressure, a slow, silent force that damages the kidney's tiny filters called nephrons. Each nephron is delicate, built for precision, not pressure. When salt levels rise, the kidneys respond like overworked employees, straining to keep up. You might not feel it for years, but eventually the swelling in your feet, the fatigue that doesn't fade, or the higher number at your next checkup starts to tell the story. There's another ingredient hiding in that creamy comfort phosphate additives. They're often listed as sodium phosphate or potassium phosphate, used to thicken soups and stabilize dairy and chowders. They don't taste salty, so most people overlook them, but they're even more dangerous than salt itself, absorbed almost entirely by the body, pushing phosphate levels up and making kidneys work overtime to flush them out. The longer that happens, the faster the filters age. You might say I only eat it once in a while. That's the illusion. These aren't rare indulgences anymore. For many Americans, canned soup is lunch several times a week, a quick fix between errands or work calls. The repetition turns a small comfort into a long-term compromise. A retired nurse from Ohio once told me she used to live on canned chicken noodle soup during night shifts. It was cheap, easy, and kept her full. But years later, she started noticing swelling in her hands and a constant metallic taste in her mouth. Her doctor called it early kidney decline. I didn't even think about the soup, she said. It felt harmless. It felt safe. That's the tragedy of trust. The labels say heart healthy, but the fine print tells another story. Salt doesn't heal hearts, it just hides in flavor. And every can you open adds one more invisible burden your kidneys must carry. The next time you reach for that comforting tin on a cold evening, pause for a second. You can still have warmth, just not the kind that ages your organs. Because if salt alone can strain your kidneys, wait until you see what's hiding in those ready-to-eat cans of chili and pasta. Number 2. Canned chili and pasta meals. The first spoonful of canned chili hits like a punch, thick, salty, and sharp. It floods your tongue before you can even taste the beans. You feel full, maybe even satisfied, but not in the same way you would after a homemade meal. There's a kind of burn that feels more chemical than comforting. Now think of real chili slow-cooked on a Sunday afternoon, onions, sweating in a pan, garlic, softening tomatoes, breaking down into sweetness. You add salt by hand, one pinch at a time, tasting and adjusting until it feels right. The flavor builds, not bursts. It lingers, it changes. You can taste the balance between fire and warmth. Canned chili doesn't have that. It doesn't breathe, it just shouts. A single serving of canned chili or pasta sauce can contain between 800 and 1200 milligrams of sodium, more than double what most homemade versions use. The salt is not there for taste, it's there for time. It keeps the sauce thick and the meat fresh on a shelf for years. That's the hidden trade-off flavor, replaced by chemistry, patience replaced by pressure. Your kidneys feel that trade more than your tongue ever will. Each can is a quick spike in sodium that draws water into the bloodstream and forces your kidneys to work overtime, filtering what never needed to be there in the first place. Add in the phosphate additives that make the sauce creamy and the meat hold its shape, substances your body absorbs completely, and you're giving your organs an endless overtime shift they can't refuse. Homemade food has rest built into it. The simmering, the waiting, the tasting, all those pauses let the body slow down too. There's no need for chemicals to hold things together because care already does that. When you eat slow food, your body follows that rhythm. When you eat canned food, it fights against it. A woman in Michigan told me she used to love canned pasta. She'd pour it straight into a bowl for her kids and call it dinner. It smelled good, she said, and it filled them up. But then she started learning about what went into those cans. Now when I open one, it just smells like regret, she said softly. She said, the next day she dropped the can back into her basket. She didn't even put it on the stove. Instead, she opened her fridge, pulled out onions, garlic, and a jar of tomatoes. She turned on the radio, tied her apron, and began to cook. The sauce simmered, the air filled with the sound of home, not the hiss of a can, but the rhythm of care. The difference wasn't just taste, it was trust. One came from a factory, the other from her own hands. One forced her body to work harder, the other gave it rest. If a spoonful of salt can change the story of dinner, imagine what happens when the meat itself comes packed with it. Number 3, canned processed meats. Have you ever felt strangely heavy after eating canned meat, not just full, but tired in a way that rest can't fix? That isn't just in your head, it's your kidneys quietly struggling to keep up. Each serving of canned meat, whether it's Spam corned beef or Vienna sausage, carries a lot more than flavor. It's loaded with more than 1,000 milligrams of sodium plus phosphate and nitrite preservatives, meant to keep the meat pink and safe for years. These ingredients help it look perfect on the plate, but inside the body, they behave differently. They turn every bite into extra work for the kidneys. Here's what actually happens. Sodium makes the body hold on to water. That extra water thickens the blood and raises pressure inside the tiny tubes of the kidney, the nephrons. At first, the kidneys adapt, filtering faster, pushing harder, but day after day they lose a little of their strength. Phosphate additives make things worse. They break the balance between calcium and phosphorus, causing minerals to build up in blood vessels. Nitrites, which give the meat its pink color, irritate those same vessels. Together, these substances don't cause pain right away. They cause wear, the kind you don't notice until years later. Clinically, it's like watching a slow leak. The filters scar, the pressure builds, waste that should be gone starts to linger in the bloodstream. You may not feel sick, but you start waking up puffy around the eyes, or you feel drained after a meal. The body whispers long before it shouts. For many people, canned meat isn't about carelessness, it's about time. It's easy, it's cheap, it's fast, but the body doesn't understand shortcuts. It only understands balance. There's a man I met once, an office worker in his 50s who lived alone. Every night after work, he'd fry a slice or two of canned meat, eat it with rice, and call it dinner. It's simple, he said. It saves time. He didn't drink, didn't smoke, and thought he was doing fine. Until one day, his doctor told him his kidney function had dropped. Nothing dramatic, just numbers. Stage 2, the doctor said gently. We need to watch it. That night, he couldn't finish his meal. The same smell that used to comfort him suddenly felt heavy. He threw away the oil in the pan and stood there for a long time, listening to the faint buzz of the fridge. Now he cooks differently. He still eats alone, but he buys fresh food eggs, green, simple cuts of pork or chicken. It takes longer, yes, but he says the food feels lighter. The first few weeks, he didn't notice much change, but over time the swelling in his hands eased and that tired heaviness started to fade. The biggest difference, he told me later, is not that I feel younger. It's that I don't feel guilty every time I eat. The damage won't heal overnight, but change when it's real doesn't need to be fast. And if salt and preservatives can wear down the body this quietly, imagine what happens when the danger isn't even in the food, but in the can itself. Number 4, canned tomatoes and sauces. I buy them because they're cheap. A woman told me in the grocery aisle holding a can of tomato sauce with a bright red label. It's fast, it's red, it looks real enough. She smiled, dropped 3 cans into her cart and moved on. But she didn't know that behind that color lies an entire economy built on compromise. Economist Dr. Harold Klein, who has studied food supply chains for over 20 years, once said, "In processed food, time is the real currency. Whoever shortens it wins even if the product loses its soul." That's exactly what happened with tomatoes. To meet the speed of modern demand factories, no longer wait for the fruit to ripen under the sun. They harvest early, concentrate the puree in giant tanks, and blend it with color stabilizers to fake natural richness. Inside, heat and acid collide with the thin BPA lining of each can, the same chemical used to prevent rust. Over time, that barrier weakens and microscopic traces of BPA mix into the sauce. You won't taste it, but your kidneys will notice. The compound mimics hormones, confusing the body's signals for filtering waste. Little by little, the kidneys begin to retain fluid they should release. Protein starts leaking into urine, a sign of stress that most people never connect to something as innocent as a can of tomato sauce. Dr. Klein explained it simply. The industry didn't intend harm. They just optimized away humanity. Efficiency replaced craftsmanship. Workers now monitor gauges, not flavor. And he's right. Walk into a canning plant today and you'll see stainless steel speed and noise, endless lines of metal moving red liquid from one stage to another. The sauce is tested by color meters, not by taste buds. Profit margins depend on how many cans seal in an hour, not how they smell when they open. The result is a product that looks beautiful, consistent, glossy, dependable, but stripped of everything that once made food feel alive. No real tomatoes ripening under heat. No change in color as the season turns, just uniform red achieved through chemistry and pressure. The woman I met still buys a can now and then. It's practical, she says, especially when I'm tired. But every time she opens one, she pauses for a moment. The hiss feels mechanical. The scent is sharp, metallic, faintly sour. It fills her kitchen with something that feels distant, like a memory stretched too thin. She pours the sauce into a pan, stirs it once, and watches the colors swirl. It's red, yes, maybe even perfect, but it doesn't remind her of anything real. It's the kind of red that never saw sunlight, the kind that exists only because numbers demanded it. Number 5. Canned fish and brine. After 4 objective stories, I think I should tell you mine. I love tuna cans, I really do. For years I could eat them day after day. They were my lazy lunches, my late night fix, my easy protein. Open drain mix with a little mayo or rice and done. No dishes, no effort, no waste. It felt clean. But one morning I woke up with a strange heaviness near my side, the place where the kidneys sit. It wasn't pain, not sharp or alarming, just a quiet pull. That same afternoon I picked up a can and read the label properly for the first time. The truth hit me like a Babe Ruth's bat. A single can of tuna in brine carries roughly 600 milligrams of sodium, before you even add seasoning and traces of mercury that the body doesn't easily let go. Mercury binds to proteins in the blood, traveling through the same veins the kidneys rely on. Unlike salt, it doesn't dissolve away. It lingers attaching to the kidney's tissue. And the salt, that familiar sea comfort, turns into a constant pressure. Each nephron, those tiny filters working day and night, has to pull double duty, flushing excess sodium and keeping the system balanced. But they never get a break. Over months and years, the pressure builds like waves hitting the same rock. Nothing breaks until something finally gives. When kidneys strain, they don't shout. They whisper. It begins with swelling, then fatigue that feels like gravity suddenly grew stronger. Sometimes it's a dull ache, sometimes nothing at all. You might even blame it on sleep or age or work. But inside, the filters are slowing the balance tilting. It's not dramatic, but it's real. I brought this up to a friend, an old cook who's spent half his life near the coast. His kitchen always smells of lemon and oil, not aluminum. When I told him about the tuna cans, he nodded slowly. Tuna in a can is tasty, he said. It's real fish, sure, but my family only eats it when we've got no time. I always rinse it first just to wash off that sea it no longer belongs to. He wasn't judging, just stating a truth that I had ignored for years. Convenience always charges interest. It doesn't take it from your wallet, it takes it from your body. That night, I tried cooking tuna by hand for the first time. Fresh fillet light oil, a pinch of salt, and a squeeze of lemon. It wasn't the same. The texture was rougher, the flavor softer, but something about it felt right. The kitchen smelled clean, and the plate looked honest. My body felt lighter afterward, not perfect, just less burdened. I still pass by the canned aisle sometimes, and my hand almost reaches for that familiar blue tin. Old habits are hard to forget, but then I think of that heaviness, that whisper from within, and I keep walking. The sea is still my favorite taste. I just prefer it without the silence that comes after. Number 6. Pickled vegetables, olives, and sauerkraut. That crisp bite, that tangy taste, it feels light, even healthy. But beneath that crunch lies an old trick that's been turned inside out. Brining was once a way to save life, not shorten it. Centuries ago, people pickled vegetables with care and instinct. Salt wasn't just a flavor. It was a form of protection, a way to make cabbage, cucumber, or radish last through the winter. Those jars were alive, fermenting, building good bacteria that helped digestion and strengthened the body. Now, the same word pickled means something entirely different. In factories, vegetables are washed, blanched, and sealed in brine, strong enough to last for years. The salt concentration is multiplied, the acid standardized, the flavor sharpened to catch attention, not nourish. These aren't living foods anymore, they're preserved illusions. What once worked with nature now works against the body that eats it. Inside your system, all that sodium behaves like a tide with nowhere to go. It drags water into the bloodstream, thickening it, pushing against vessel walls. Blood pressure rises not suddenly but steadily day by day, meal by meal. The kidneys, which manage all that extra fluid, are forced to keep up filtering out the overload as best they can. Every salty crunch adds one more turn of the pressure wheel. Clinically speaking, it's simple physics. More sodium means more water means higher pressure, and higher pressure means more strain on the kidneys' delicate filters, the nephrons. These tiny networks are built for balance, not battle. When they face constant overload, their tissue stiffens and scars. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens in quiet moments with a sandwich, with a handful of olives, with that second helping of light pickled vegetables. A half cup of canned pickled vegetables or olives can contain more than 600 milligrams of sodium, about 1/3 of what doctors recommend for an entire day. That's not counting the rest of your meal or the sauces and breads that follow. In the end, that healthy side dish does the same thing as a bag of chips, only slower and more politely. The irony is that the human body doesn't crave salt because it's bad, it craves it because it remembers what it used to mean survival balance taste. But modern production turned it into something else. The brine that once connected us to the seasons has become a way to hide how far our food has drifted from its source. Many people say they eat canned pickles because they're low in calories or because the tang wakes up the appetite. And that's true for a moment, it does feel refreshing. But when the kidneys have to deal with that kind of constant sodium bath, refreshment turns to fatigue. You may not feel it right away, but the body keeps score. A nutritionist I once spoke with put it best. Traditional pickling taught patience. Industrial pickling taught speed. The salt stayed the same, only the kindness left. That sentence stayed with me, because she wasn't just talking about food, she was talking about us. We preserved everything but time, and in doing so, we forgot how to listen to what our own body was asking for. So the next time that tangy crunch tempts you, maybe stop for a second. Salt used to save us. Now it just wants a little mercy in return. Number 7. Canned soups and instant broths. You lift the lid and it feels like home. The color, the steam, the nostalgia in every swirl. It smells like Sunday evenings, like something your mother once made when the world outside was cold. You don't question it, because the can already told its story before you even touched the spoon. Home, but faster. Canned soups don't just sell food, they sell a feeling. Every design choice is calculated: the golden hue of the label, the home-style font, the photo of a steaming bowl with tiny bubbles caught mid-glow. Even the hiss when you open it is designed to please the ear. The sound of trust prepackaged. You're not buying broth, you're buying reassurance. But comfort is the easiest thing to sell because everyone wants it and few stop to measure the price. Beneath that glow and steam, one serving of canned soup often carries 800 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium, nearly half your daily limit, plus phosphate-based flavor enhancers that make the taste seem richer than it is. These additives amplify the illusion of warmth, urging your tongue to remember a home-cooked meal that never actually happened. It feels soothing, but it's chemically scripted warmth with a side of wear. And the trick doesn't end with taste. For decades, marketing teams have studied not hunger but memory. They learned that comfort food isn't about the stomach, it's about the heart and what the mind associates with safety. They play with color psychology, golden tones that signal security, soft steam, and slow motion that feels like care. You see the ad and your pulse slows before your spoon even moves. The idea of nourishment becomes more powerful than the act itself. A retired mall director once told me we used to design food courts around the smell of soup. Not the taste, the smell. We'd pump it through vents so people walking by would slow down, remember home, and buy something they didn't plan to. He smiled faintly, not proudly, just knowingly. It wasn't hunger, he said. It was memory marketing. We sold warmth, not meals. Then he paused, staring down at his coffee. I didn't think about health back then. I thought about foot traffic. That sentence stuck with me. Because he wasn't confessing guilt, he was describing an era. One where comfort became an industry and familiarity turned into currency. The soups changed, but so did we. We learned to crave not flavor, but the story printed on the can. The real cost isn't just the sodium or the phosphates. It's what we've given up: the ritual of patience, the sound of a simmering pot, the smell that grew slowly instead of being engineered in seconds. When we replaced that with convenience, we lost something more precious: control over what comfort means. Breaking that spell doesn't require perfection. You don't need to give up soup, just question it. Read the label, dilute it. Or better yet, make your own broth once in a while, the kind that takes time, the kind that fogs up the windows, the kind that smells like care instead of marketing. It won't look perfect, and that's the beauty of it. Because real warmth was never meant to be sealed in a can. It was meant to be shared, stirred, and earned, the kind that doesn't need a label to prove its home. We've opened 7 cans together, each one promising ease, flavor, or comfort, yet asking something back from the body. From tuna to soup, every story has carried the same thread. What we trade for time is often our own balance. These weren't tales meant to frighten you, but to remind you that even the smallest habit deserves a second glance. If you've made it this far, thank you for your patience, your curiosity, and your trust. Awareness is slow work, and it takes courage to look behind the label. Most people won't, but you just did. Maybe you'll still buy a can from time to time. That's fine. The goal isn't to fear food, but to see it clearly. Every meal you cook yourself, every ingredient you choose with care, gives your body one more reason to thank you later. So keep the stove warm. Let the kitchen smell like effort again. Because cooking isn't about perfection, it's about reclaiming something simple: control, kindness, and the pride of making real food with your own hands. Real health starts not in the store aisle, but in the time you choose to give yourself.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.